So as a private practice hearing care leader, where should you be focused right now in the summer of 2025? That is exactly what we're going to be talking about today as I share 4 big areas that I'd be giving key consideration to. Welcome to the Business of Hearing podcast, the #1 marketing and practice growth podcast for high-performing private practice hearing care leaders. My name's Ollie Luke. Pull up a chair, pour yourself a drink, and let's have a chat. So welcome along to another episode of the Business of Hearing podcast. And at the start of this year, I put a post out on LinkedIn and I shared kind of 3 big predictions that I had for 2025. Number 1 was that Apple would come with the AirPod Pro 3s. Number 2 would be that Google would lose a pretty historic amount of market share to ChatGPT. And then the third is this will be a monumental year for upgrades and maybe even a record year for patient upgrades. And it's quite interesting, right? The Apple thing is a conundrum right now. I don't quite know what they're going to do with the AirPod Pro 3 given the tariffs and some of the delays and some of the challenges Apple are having. But we're seeing Google lose market share on a crazy scale. I've seen a study came out recently that predicted it was at 65 to 70%, not the 90 to 95% that many people suggest. But who knows? But it's happening. It's happening at scale. And then the third one, it's been a pretty mega year for upgrades, with 2025 being the 4-year anniversary of 2021, which had that pent up demand of COVID. So as we kind of sit here now, 6 months on from those predictions, that they're looking pretty solid. And it made me think ahead of recording this, well, okay, that was the start of the year. If I'm looking now and going, where should we focus? Where are the areas of opportunity as we move forward? What would they be for a private practice like yours? And I've got 4 kind of big areas of focus that I would have if I was in your shoes, of where I would be putting my attention to ensure we're ready to navigate 2026 and be ahead of the curve. The first one is a biggie, and this is AI search. Now, Google recently introduced their AI mode. Now, we've spoken about this on previous episodes. We've seen this coming. We knew Google was testing it in labs. They have been hit hard by this AI shift. People jump into ChatGPT, and dare I say, ChatGPT offering a better user experience without ads that gave answers in a clearer way. People can navigate solutions to the conundrums that they've got without having to look at multiple listings and go and click through, find information, or deal with the headache of an AI overview. It was a significantly better user experience. Google were on the back foot, and they have now counterpunched and launched their AI mode, and it's essentially been rolled out across the US. So every single Google user in the US now has this as a key option in their Google browser or their Google kind of home screen, however it's positioned as an alternative way to search. Now, this is going to change the game significantly because traditional SEO was very predictable. Basically, if somebody searched this keyword, them listings were going to be the same for everyone. But with this Google AI mode, what we're seeing is no 2 searches are going to be the same, because Google are going to take into consideration what your preferences are. For example, if Google know that you don't like mushrooms and you search for a recipe, they know not to include any recipe with mushrooms based on the knowledge base they've built up on you. Similar to what ChatGPT have had in place. So it's not particularly revolutionary, but that means that the reliance that people have on Google for making searches, each search is going to be dramatically different. And people are going to be searching for answers, not websites. And this is going to be a big shift, especially for practices like ours, because predominantly what we've wanted to do is show up as the educator, show up as the thought leader. When people are looking for hearing test near me, hearing doctor near me, audiologist near me, we want to show up in the key searches. The challenge is Google are not now going to recommend 10 different websites. With their AI mode, it's going to be, here's your recommendation. And it's going to change the game, right? Because now it's going to be, here's the one, not here's the 10, go and decide. So the whole world of SEO, I wouldn't say dead, but changed. It's having CPR right now. It's in a very compromised position for what has historically been done and the game that people have played from an SEO perspective. The whole playing field's now shifted so monumentally that the things that used to work even a year ago and 2 years ago for the way that you wanted to write blogs on your website to appear for keywords and ensure you have the right keywords built in, like that stuff is just lost value so significantly compared to where the web is going. So what does that mean? What does tactically that mean? What should your area of focus be right now? Well, it's very clear. Like, good enough is no longer good enough. If your strategy was to have a half-assed website, but you just spent money on SEO to try and manipulate the system, like, game over, my friends. Like, this now becomes a game of prove. Who are you? Who are you for? How much of your track record can you prove that you've helped the people that you say you've helped to achieve the outcomes that they're looking for? If you do that really, really well, you're going to be in a good position. And even from a blog perspective, answering FAQs, no longer relevant unless your goal is just to feed the AI information that it can synthesize and pass on to the user. Your blogs now, need to be human-centric. They need to tell stories. They need to focus on local. Like, no more the 4 different types of hearing loss. Instead, it's meet Jim. He had this tinnitus challenge. Here's how he solved it. It's the best coffee shops in location as voted by our patients. Like, that's the stuff that is going to help you to be recognized as local thought leader, local educator, local hearing care provider in the locations that you want to serve. The game has changed, and your job needs to be, you can't just have a standard website that shares what you do. Be very, very clear who you're for. Be very, very clear why you're the logical option for them, and be very, very clear on the evidence that you can provide to show that you are the option for those patients and your category of one, that nobody else can come close to helping those specific people with those specific preferences to achieve the outcomes that they're looking for. So that is number one, big area of focus right now. Let me jump into number 2. And I took a picture of it because my brain is mush. The second is community. Now, let me preface this slightly, is you're probably sick of hearing about AI, and I'm sick of talking about it, but we are going through the switch of a generation from the way that people achieve outcomes, the way that research is conducted, to even the job market. Like, it's so dramatic right now. And I don't want to be a doomsday guy, and I don't want to feel like this is a sci-fi movie of making predictions, but we aren't too far away from the internet no longer being a trusted source of information. What I mean by that is, even looking at the new video models that have come out from VO, like, you can no longer believe anything that you see on the internet. Any piece of news that even has video evidence to say this happened, Donald Trump did this, Conor McGregor shot a pigeon, like, it no longer is particularly relevant because you just can't believe what you are seeing, given the complexity and brilliance of many of these video models, image generation models. And the main place where these are going to feed through is social media. Like, social media is going to be very difficult to determine what's the truth versus what's not, because social media today isn't particularly go and see what your friends are up to. It's more, let us push narratives to you, let us echo your views of the world, give you the things that will infuriate you, give you the things that will delight you, give the things that very much play to who you are based on the user profile that social media accounts have developed on you. And when we can no longer trust what we see on the internet, when the information that we're reading online is typically AI written, that it just lacks any form of human element, then what are we going to want to do as humans? It's going to be to return to belonging, sense of belonging, community, real relationships with real people. And an area of focus that I would have if I was in your shoes right now is, how do you leverage the community of your patients better? Because right now, my guess is all your patients don't particularly have relationships with each other. They have relationships with you. And is there a way you can turn your 100, 200, 500, 1,000 active patients that you have and look to create some form of community out of it? Because they all have a lot of things in common. Typically, they're all a similar age group. Like, you could create community that creates stickiness to you, that creates a whole different level of relationship of how they see you, how they leverage you, how they perceive you, by looking at how you lean into community. Now, the simple things you can do here, the email communications, your email newsletters, the way you communicate with your patients, spotlight other patients, share their story, create collaboration. But without really looking to lean into this, like, is there annual events that you should have? Should you have patient events where all patients come together? You get them together, you have a band on, you have a celebration, you do an awards evening, whatever you want it to be. But how can you create a community out of them where they know each other, and that becomes a big part of the stickiness of patients with you and the community that is there? because I'm seeing this more and more, even in corporate companies, a lot of offsite meetings now happening because of AI. Like it's an unofficial offsite. We're getting out, we're going finding somewhere private to speak because who knows what's listening. Like everything is being listened to by that, no doubt. There's about 20 pieces of electrical equipment in here. Like the trust we're going to have for AI, I think is going to go through a big challenge, and being human centric is going to be so key going forward, and community is the ultimate way to leverage that. So that's number one. Number two, and then move on to number three. And here's where I'd be giving big area of focus right now. And it's exploring acquisition. Because we're seeing it, right? This year has been challenging for a lot of practices, and it's going to get significantly more challenging. The change that has happened just on Google very, very recently, that's going to just completely divide the playing field. Like no longer now is it this equal, everyone can win by doing the right things on the internet. Like it's going to make big shifts. The best are going to win. The cream is going to rise to the top. And as a result, we're going to see a lot of practices in very, very compromised positions where they're not getting the patient flow that they typically did because, dare I say, we're seeing them do the things that no longer work from a marketing perspective, and they're just about getting through from reputation and referrals. Like that is going to dry up because the patients that are referring them are inevitably going to stop referring or reach a point where they're no longer a patient themselves naturally. Like they're going to be put in a compromised position. And from your position right now, acquisition could be rife. Like who are the practices that are geographically located that will allow you to expand your operation, the way that you do things, the reputation that you've got, and do it on a wider scale where you can essentially buy their existing revenue, their equipment, patient book, and do it correctly. Because if you're watching this podcast, my assumption is you want to do the game correctly, and you do the game correctly. Many do not. Many are so far behind that the gap is so wide for them even to catch up. If you've got the logistics dialed in, if you've got the marketing dialed in, if you're playing the game for today's world rather than a 2015, 2010, 2005 world, then you've got a massive competitive advantage if you can buy a practice like that, roll it into your group, and take the wisdom, knowledge, and expertise and apply it to it. And from an acquisition perspective, the big challenge that many have when they look to acquire is, I'm going to have to leverage a bunch of debt. It's going to be significantly painful. And that's not the case where we're at right now. Like these practices are hurting. Leveraging money is more difficult than ever. And of course, you can run to a manufacturer with a big unit agreement, but it wouldn't be my recommendation. There's a lot of aging practice owners that need to get out, and they'd get out on flexible terms because their options are running thin, especially if their business is on the decline. Like there is going to be an agreement there where you could probably take over for minimal money down, but some form of agreement and earn out clause. Like there's so many different structures that you can structure an M&A deal like that. But with so many aging businesses on the decline, they're going to reach a point where they're not going to find a buyer and the doors are going to have to be closed. And you can be the saving grace to many of the challenges and conundrums that they have to take over that practice and do it on terms that is very, very helpful to you from a cash flow perspective. So that would be a third big area that I'd be giving consideration to right now. And then my final one is pricing model. And I could rant and record a separate episode on this, and I probably will in more depth. But the pricing model of our industry, how long can it last for? Like patients spend several $1,000s for a set of hearing aids and the promise of care and service, and we ask them to redo that every 4 to 5 years. Like that model naturally made a lot of sense for the silent generation that we've served for the past 2 decades because they were typically frugal. They grew up during a time where the Great Depression, which kicked off in 1929, World War II, 1939, like given that they were born between 1924 and 1945, like torrid upbringing that created their view of the world. And it's unsurprising that that generation wants to hold and buy for as long as possible and maximize the lifetime of anything they get, maximize the value of anything they get. And prime example of that is Warren Buffett, right? He's a 95-year-old guy. He's worth $155 billion and he drives a 11-year-old Chrysler. Like, it makes a lot of sense. He's a prime example of somebody who will buy, hold, maximize the value, not really care about new. And our pricing model has predominantly been built on that generation. The challenge I've got is I wouldn't buy hearing aids that way around. If I needed hearing care, the thought of dropping $7,000 today and having to do the same again in 4 or 5 years, in a world where I can buy a $100,000 car in a much more convenient manner than a set of hearing aids, that's a concern, right? It's very, very confusing. And I just struggle to see that this model is going to be around for the next couple of decades. I think it was built to serve that generation and work well and naturally manage your cash flow, or give you great cash flow, pay your cash flow up front almost and pay your profit up front. But going forward, I'd be putting that under the microscope right now. What is the right model? And it's very interesting to see what Resonate have done in New Zealand with their model. So dramatically different to anything we've seen in the US, UK, Canadian markets. Yet it's getting market share on a crazy, crazy scale because it's putting the convenience of the patient, the user at the forefront. And if you're not familiar, it's essentially no money down, a fixed amount a month, which I believe is 90 New Zealand dollars, which is about 60 US dollars. And then every 3 years, they roll you into brand new premium technology with no extra out-of-pocket cost. Like, that's pretty scary, right? Because you pay $90 a month and you're good for the rest of your life, always wearing premium tech with premium service, with premium care. Like, that is very, very difficult to compete with. Now, of course, they can do this in a few ways because there's a subsidy in New Zealand from the government for hearing aids. And I am going to assume they're running at somewhat of a financial loss assumption. They're probably heavily backed because their customer acquisition costs and their lifetime value, they're willing to play the long game on that. So they may go underwater on day one because they know they're going to make revenue profit on day or month 60, hypothetically. They may be playing that game. But just looking at some of those models and how they can apply to the generation of patients that we're going to be serving, which are going to be these younger ones that pay for their cell phone on a monthly basis, pay their television on a monthly basis, possibly pay for their car on a monthly basis. It's something I'd be giving key consideration to. So let's just back up, right? We talked about the role of AI search and how the role of your website is different than it ever has been. We talked about how you can leverage community much more. Community events, dare I say, we may see a return of the lunch and learn. Number 3, we talked about the role of, told you my brain is turning to mush. We talked about the role of acquisitions and how there is rife opportunity right now for practices that are probably reaching the end of their life and need to find the next buyer. And then that final point, which we finished on, being a key one. So we're at a very, very interesting time right now. We're seeing more change from a marketing perspective than I've seen in my 15-year career in marketing. The role of this Google switch is monumental. The big, and even if I will say, if your marketing company is not telling you about this, then run for the hills. Like, it's a big concern. Like, this should be the number one conversation between every marketing company in the world, because if Google are going through a big switch that's going to change everything, it's going to impact everything. And it's no surprise that SEO companies are keeping quiet about this and Google ad companies are keeping quiet about this, because it directly impacts their model. Like, it's in their interest for people not to know this stuff, because if you know it, you're going to ask questions, and the more questions get asked, the more compromised position they're going to be put into. But that's where I'd be putting my focus right now. But I appreciate you listening. And as always, if you find these episodes helpful, tell somebody about them. Like, we grow this podcast through word of mouth. Like, there's no advertising here. There's no, we haven't got a sponsor that's about to rock up to try and sell you something you don't need. This is a word of mouth, knowing that a rising tide lifts all boats in our industry. And as private practices, we need that more than ever. So if you found it helpful, tell somebody, tell a colleague, tell a friend, tell an industry friend, stick it in a Facebook group. Even if you disagree with the opinion, that'll probably help more eyeballs. You being angry about something I've said, please do. But no, I appreciate your time greatly, and I'll speak to you again next week. And there we have it. Another episode has come to an end, and I have a quick favor to ask. If you have found this helpful, then who do you know who should listen to this podcast? I strongly believe a rising tide lifts all boats, and right now, private practice needs to stick together to fight these big, gormless groups and these manufacturer-owned Goliaths that are looking to take market share from us. Consider who should be listening. Pass on the word about the Business of Hearing podcast, and I'll see you again next week.